to the show. Today we have Adrienne Meisels. She's the CEO and founder of myPlanit. Adrienne, welcome back to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on the show. We had a really good conversation last time, and I actually think what you guys are doing at myPlanit is kind of at the forefront of kind of the next version of kind of the Internet of Things, kind of whatever kind of buzzwords you need to talk about. But before we kind of get into exactly what you're doing with myPlanit, let's maybe get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, which I used to actually be really proud to say that, and then that came out. But it's very different when you grow up there. Yeah. So grew up on the ocean.
Nice. Jealous. I love the ocean. So walk me through kind of, you went to university. Walk me through kind of your educational career, and then we'll get into myPlanit pretty quick.
Sure. So I'll actually start out a little bit before that.
Sure.
My family got a computer really early on. We got a computer. I started coding when I was 11 years old.
Nice.
Yeah, and took my first formal coding class in high school. And I went to the University of Pennsylvania for undergraduate. I was very interested in the time in international relations, international affairs, and I wanted to go to the State Department through their legal division to negotiate peace treaties. My mom is the survivor of 2 wars. She's from Budapest, and so it was a big passion area of mine. So at Penn, I got 2 degrees in 4 years, one from the Liberal Arts School in European history and one from Wharton in international business. But even then, I had a computer. I had a Macintosh SE, was coding programs in HyperCard. And my parents didn't have money for law school. I had to finance it on my own. So I worked as a software developer for 3 years after undergrad, before law school. I worked at, it's now Accenture. It was Anderson Consulting, and then at Lotus Development. And then I went to law school here I'm in Manhattan, and put myself through law school by coding at nights and on the weekends after my classes and after my studies.
That's actually really cool, right? Like and just now that you're kind of doing your own thing, understanding law has got to be so valuable.
It really is. You know, when I decided I wanted to go to the State Department, I had 2 routes. One was through sort of the Foreign Council, and people get a master's in international affairs, an MIA, or the law degree. And I was like, wow, that law degree is so much more versatile than an MIA, you know? Yeah. And so and not only that, like, law is logic-based. I mean, it's a logic-based system, and so is coding. So they're both logic-based systems. So they really actually, you know, work well together as far as the brain is concerned. And as you and I know from our last conversation, I'm really into the brain.
Sure.
So yes, I worked at a very large international law firm, did mostly complex cross-border financings in Latin America and South America. I was the lead attorney on a historic IPO. It's a tech IPO. It's the largest IPO in history. It will never be repeated because it was 2000, it was the height of craziness.
Sure.
But largest IPO in history for a company that had not yet had a customer contract.
Wow.
And they IPO'd for like $1 billion. So yeah, back in the day. And after that, I realized I didn't want to go to the State Department for a lot of reasons. So I left the law and I went back into technology on the business side, and I went to AOL. And I was at AOL at its height I was there for many years. First, negotiating technology licenses, technology deals, and eventually I ended up running the innovation team called New Business Ventures. And that's when I really found my passion for location. And for me, it's, as Oprah says, a full circle moment, because it allowed me to combine the fact that I built technology and I knew product with the fact that I knew financial models and revenue structures and strategic partnerships. And I started working in location-based services, or LBS, here in the United States really early on in its history. So in January of 2005, I had heard that the FCC was requiring all the wireless carriers to put GPS in the systems, so that way when we dialed 911, the emergency number in the United States, on our cell phones, emergency vehicles could find us.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we were all right, because you could do it from your landline. They knew where your landline was located so that the ambulance or the police could to your home, right? But they didn't know where you were standing when you dialed it. So we were already getting a bit of data into those Nokia WAP phones that we all had. And I was like, wow, if we can combine this data with a user's location, this is going to be massive. So I put together a large strategy for AOL called the AOL Neighborhood. We owned MapQuest, which at the time was the leading map provider, right? And we had AIM, which is sadly going away now,
Yes.
but end of an era.
Yep, it is, very much so.
Right? I called it Friend and Family Finder. We can ping your friends and your family, right, on a computer. We'll be able to ping them on their phone where their location was, right? It was Foursquare before Foursquare.
Sure.
We owned City Guide and Movie Phone, right? We had points of interest and events. I said, let's aggregate this, create an experience on the desktop client, and talk through the cloud to your cell phone and back and forth, right, as you're going around. And AOL filed 5 patents that got granted off of that strategy, and at least one that I know of, Facebook acquired.
Nice.
And Facebook has filed 3 more. Yeah, and they're now using it 12 years later in their virtual assistant M. So, and I say that myPlanit takes location to the next level by adding the dimension of time, past, present, and future. Because we live in a unified time-space reality. And the way that our brains have evolved over 2 million years is to process information, process data based on our physical real-world environment. Like your body is always at some location, right? Some latitude, longitude, altitude, we call that the where. You're always at some point in time, that's the when. You're always doing something, like even if you're sleeping and you're unconscious and there's apps that track that, or you're meditating, right? My meditation app logs my meditations, right? You're semi-conscious, and you may be, and that's the what, and you may be with somebody else, that's the who. So every sort of nanosecond of a human's life is this cluster of data, which is a who, what, where, when data fields. And we connect, myPlanit, what we do is we connect all those who, what, when, wheres from your disconnected siloed apps into a network that we call the Internet of You. And we pull the data fields and the data bits out of these different apps and reconnect them based on place and time, because that's how our brains work.
Sure.
So our brain, our hippocampus, which is our recall center, just to get a little like brain nerdy on you.
I think it's good. I love it.
Yeah, is actually spatiotemporal recall.
Okay.
Right? So it connects who, what, where, when parts of our brain into context. And so when I say to you, oh, Kevin, what was the name of that restaurant we went to? Remember, it was in Tribeca. It was over the summer. It was hot. We were standing outside, right? That's how we think. But we can't, there's only one neural connection to names in our brains, right? So for most of us humans, we have a hard time. What was the name of the restaurant? Who was that person we met at CES, right? What was the name of that bottle of wine? The challenge in technology today is that all of search is word-based. Right. And there's only one neural connection to names. So that's why we have a challenge. So the question becomes, what if you could search for your information without any words? Sure. What if you could search based on how your brain works? So in version 1 of the myPlanit app, you zoom in on the map to Tribeca, you push the time slider back to middle May, middle September, and all your personal data that is geo-time indexed to that time-space reality appears. The places you went, the people you met, the events you attended, the things you did. So we call it like augmented memory or a second brain. A colleague of mine who's very well entrenched in the personal data space, he calls it his neural Google.
Interesting, yeah. And I think the other thing too is like you tie photos in as well. So like I think at least for me, when I'm looking back on something, I'm like, where was that? But like usually I took a photo of something at that event, right? And so just being able to go through your timeline when you're zooming in and say like in May, to your example, and like being able to see the photos is kind of cool too, right? Because I love that kind of stuff. And when I was playing with the app, we recorded about a month ago the radio version of the show. So in the last kind of month, I've been kind of just playing with the app as well, just to kind of go back on like history as it's been kind of, you know, as I've been doing more stuff, right, and moving around and traveling a little bit, just being able to like see that, it's actually really cool what you guys are doing with kind of mapping and like, well, it's hard to describe the kind of interface just like to people, but when you have like the scrolling timeline kind of on the left and the map in the background, it's actually a really intuitive kind of interface.
Yeah, and that was our goal, was to make it super intuitive, like literally to recreate not only the data structure, but the interface based on how our brains work. So that way it makes complete sense, right? Because that is how we think. And yeah, version 1 of the app connects your calendar with your contacts, with your photos and your videos and places. And we're bringing in data from Foursquare venues and Google addresses. So like, you might not be at a, you might not be at a Starbucks, you might be at your parents' house, right? So you want to record the address of, different places that you go. And because the challenge, what I realized is we as digital creatures are creating this massive amount of data, right? We have this huge digital exhaust, this trail of information. And this data is in these different siloed applications that don't talk to each other. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you go to dinner with a buddy and you have a great bottle of wine. That singular moment in time, place is represented by the following information. Your buddy's information is in your contacts or LinkedIn or Facebook, right? That dinner event is in your calendar. That restaurant is in a Foursquare check-in or an email. And the photo of the wine bottle that you took is now stranded in your camera application.
Sure.
Right? None of those applications talk to each other. They don't work together. You open up each one separately, create some data in it, close it, and then that app stores that data in its own separate format for its own later use. So the result is that none of your apps have a holistic view of you, Kevin, the user, right? And the Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'm sure you've heard of, right?
Yeah. I've seen him talk a few times, yeah.
So he has this quote, which is, if content is king, then context is God.
Interesting.
And if there's one word that we're in the business of, it's context.
Sure.
We contextualize data because when you connect these data bits, these data fields together, it becomes very intelligent and very powerful. And that is what we're doing on the back end, creating this network of information about you to serve you, and only it's all the private and secure, and only nothing gets shared unless you give permission to, because you feel you'll get value out of it, right? But when you start creating this really intelligent layer of contextualized information from all the data that you're creating, now we can drive what you said before, and what I firmly believe is the next wave of the internet, Web 3.0, which is highly personalized computing,
sure,
where your apps and devices know you on an individual level to deliver you predictive, personalized digital experiences.
No, I love that. And I think, I'm one of those people that loves the convenience of all that stuff. And the closer and the more stuff that I could just have happen than just get handled by an app or a few apps or whatever, just to make my life simpler. I love that. And I also really like companies that build a version and then take that kind of core and move into another vertical using the same kind of intelligence. And you guys did that. You guys recently moved into the real estate market as well. You still have the current version, the myPlanit, but you also moved into the real estate app. So walk us through how you kind of moved into another vertical with kind of the same technology, because I think it ties really well into kind of the Internet of You, but now kind of outside of the personal space into kind of the business, and then kind of both, right? They kind of feed each other some days, right? Because I think... Yeah. So walk us through kind of how you guys transitioned into the real estate space while keeping the same kind of personal version of myPlanit.
So we knew that the initial psychographic for the consumer app of myPlanit, we call it the consumer app, sure, and then the B2B. And the consumer app is in the App Store for iPhone users. And myPlanit's MyPlanit. So it's like a little play on words, myPlanit. So we knew that our initial psychographic was the highly mobile professional. And we had all the different industry verticals that we could look at. And I showed the alpha to a friend of mine who is a real estate agent.
Okay.
And she said, if you brought in the MLS data, she said, I would live on this. And so, we were looking to see how we can, obviously, I when I ran, just a sort of a backdrop to this, when I ran the innovation team at AOL, I had 3 presets that I felt built a really large, profitable digital business. One is utilities or services. And what I mean by that is, if I give you an application that makes your life easier, not just content, but that actually gives you a service, a value, you'll keep coming back to it. Sure. 2 is what I call sticky data. You start putting information in, there's a huge switching cost in order to take that out. And I learned that with Quicken when I took a weekend to set up my finances on Quicken. I'm like, I'm never doing it again. Like, they got me.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right? And 3 is platform businesses. Because when you have a platform, you can build different businesses off of it at economies of scale. So myPlanit is all 3 of those. So I took her feedback, and I hit the road, and I literally interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens of agents. And I would show them the app. I would explain what it would do. I would say where the MLS data would come in. And the feedback I got was overwhelming. Like, it was so phenomenally positive. And what I realized, too, is that agents are using pen and paper when they're out in the field.
Right.
myPlanit is a mobile field app. So it could really be used for so many different industry verticals where they have field reps or folks or salespeople who are out going places and meeting people. But, the fact that they were using pen and paper, and, I had one agent who said to me, I go back to my office and I write down, I took this client to this home, that one to that home. This one loved the kitchen. This one hated the bathroom. This one's son's birthday is blah, 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 because referrals are super important. So they want to keep, in touch with them. This one has a dog, and she's writing it on scraps of paper on MLS printouts. I had agents who told me that they take their notebook back to the office and they retype them into Microsoft Word or Excel.
That's crazy, right?
It's crazy. So at least it's searchable. And they're the smart ones, because I had an agent who I asked her for a photo of her notebook for our deck, and she lost her notebook.
Oh, that's too bad. Which is actually probably good for your pitch deck, but not good for her.
It's not even, their data is not even backed up in the cloud.
Sure.
And so, but they're not only just using pen and paper, they are there's tons of digital solutions for agents in the market. Just not a single one of them serves agents, supports them while they're out in the field, but back at their desk when they're in the office. So CRM systems, MLS systems, right? And again, these applications are siloed. The data doesn't talk to each other. So for the myPlanit real estate app, we started out by saying it's the one and only mobile field app for agents, but now we're really calling it a personal assistant, because we've created new features and functionalities that are not just bringing in MLS data to what our consumer app is, but really we're matching clients' preferences. We're notifying agents when a new listing hits and it matches all their clients, and they can take action immediately. They can schedule a meeting, they can call, they can text without having to jump from app to app to app with their life just fragmented in all these different tools. We bring it all together and then allow them to see by client, hey, here's all the homes I took Kevin to. And you can search like you do in our consumer app by time and place. Here's all the homes. You zoom in on the map. Here's all the homes I took him to in this neighborhood, or on this, in this city, in this neighborhood, on this street. You can you can search by time. Here's all the homes I showed him last week, last month, last year. And of course, by word. So they can talk their notes in, or they can type their notes in. And then we index every single word that's spoken or written. And they can say, oh, here's all the homes I showed Kevin with kitchens that he liked in this neighborhood last month.
That's really cool. And I think, put aside kind of the personal or business side, there is going to be, we're at the very, very kind of beginning of this, right? And we're all going to be able to pull in data into kind of either myPlanit or just the next wave of the internet, right? It's just going to start pulling your data or your business data or your personal data all together, right? Because I think, well, we're in tech, so personal life and business life isn't really separate. So I'm sure you know that. But for certain people, it still is. But I think it's just going to get more and more kind of interesting, right, as the years and the months kind of go on. And so I'm curious, though, to kind of get your thoughts on where do you think this stuff's going to go in kind of, 3 to 5 years?
Well, I mean, so a couple of things. Like when I talked before about the sort of highly personalized, predictive services or digital experiences, and it could be when I think of a service, I think of a feature, or it's helping you somehow. It could be predictive content or advice or ads, but really highly relevant ads because it knows you and it's giving you a value, so you actually want them,
Sure.
right? And so, there's this example, I gave it in our podcast, but I just think it's just such a great example everyone can relate to. Let's say that Starbucks knows you get a chai latte every morning before work because of your purchase history. Well, let's connect that purchase data to your location, to your calendar, which right now those are really like separate, right, applications. So, yeah. Now, your Starbucks app can say, "Good morning, Kevin. We see you have a 9 a.m. downtown. Would you like to pre-order your chai latte from the Starbucks near there?" Right? Click here to order, click here to reroute, add 5 minutes to your travel time. And as you're driving to pick it up, it sees your location and checks in with Waze or Google Traffic, Google Maps, right? And it realizes, uh-oh, you're going to be late. Would you like us to notify the other event participants of your new ETA, right? Because we have the email addresses and the calendar invite, right? And if Starbucks was really smart, they would get the coffee orders of everyone else in the room with their credit cards and your permission and have those hot and ready for you to pick up.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're the hero, right? Not the schmuck who came late to the meeting, right? Because now you have coffee for everybody, right? So that, another example, your smart device that monitors, and this is also goes to IoT, because IoT data can feed into the internet of you, right? Your smart device that monitors your blood sugar can be connected to your medical history, to your food diary app, to your calendar, and it can preemptively say, "Hey, Kevin, you should eat something soon because you have back-to-back meetings the rest of the afternoon." And then it can wake up your Seamless Web account or Grubhub account, which knows your food preferences, right?
Yeah.
So, and it can, so would you like to order some sushi now, right?
Sure.
The amount of personalized services, digital services and information that are customized for you and are just about you that can be delivered to you are endless.
Sure. No, and then as you add in kind of more smart home devices or office devices or whatever you want to call them, right? Like that can connect based on kind of your life or your day, right? Because I just got like a Google Home Mini actually last night, and I've been playing with it a little bit, not tons yet, but I can very much see how like useful it can be. I might hate it in 2 weeks, but I really don't think so. Like I very much just kind of been like, how long is it going to take me to get to work as I'm like making my lunch and getting coffee and whatnot, right? Stuff like that. I think even just those like little things that we can do now, I find like very, very useful. And so it's only going to get kind of better. And I think to your Starbucks point, I love that, right? Because we're doing this stuff anyway, but if it can be based on like where your next few hours or hours gonna be, I think that is super, super useful, right? For everybody.
Yeah. And I know, it scares people or some people to some extent, to which I have, a few comments. Obviously, privacy and security are huge. They are paramount. Sure. Internet of you to work and for all your data to be connected. But second is that I think people sort of forget that their data really now is on other people's servers already. Like the wine example I gave, like your contacts are already most likely, on Google's if you have an Android, or Apple's, or whoever is your email provider with your contacts in your calendar. So your calendar, like I have Gmail accounts, they're already on Google servers. My contacts are there, my calendar is there. Your photos most likely backed up to the iCloud or Google Drive, right? And your location is being collected by your wireless carrier.
Yeah.
So why not connect it to give benefit to you?
Yeah.
And, and sort of the third prong of this is like I mentioned it before, but it's all user opt-in and user permissioned. And, anything that we would do, myPlanit, as we go forward, if we were to partner with Starbucks, they couldn't get your data unless you in the app actively say yes.
Right.
You have access. So nobody gets your data unless you say so, because you believe it's going to give you a benefit. And if that service provider isn't giving you a benefit, you turn off their access. Sure. You are always in control of it.
Sure.
Really?
No,
so when you
no, I think that's important to mention, right? Because I think certain people are going to say, today Starbucks send me this order so I can bring everybody coffee, but then maybe tomorrow you turn that off, right? Like it's going to be personal preference. So I think that makes a lot of really good sense and advice to actually mention. But sadly, we're coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about myPlanit, kind of the consumer and kind of the real estate vertical.
Sure. If they go to www.myPlanit.com, they can see the consumer app. There's a link to download it from the App Store, and on the top of that page, there's a little banner that they can click to go to see the real estate, or they can email us at info@myPlanit.com.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day again to be on the show, and look forward to keeping in touch with you.
It's a pleasure.
And we should probably do another one, in the new year sometime. I'm curious to see where you guys go and what you add, because, I'm sure you're going to get requests, and it's just going to be interesting to watch how companies grow.
I would love to do that.
Perfect. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.